Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Young here with a Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer analysis. Before you proceed, I do recommend that you watch the trailer first if you haven't done so yet. I have added an annotation on the video for your convenience, but if you're good to go, there's just tons to talk about, so let's dive right into it. The extended version of the trailer begins where it ends, with Kaz's rescue from Afghanistan. At this point, Kaz is missing his right arm and half of his left leg, and endured severe torture that crippled him permanently. My question is, when did Kaz lose his limbs? Did he lose them in Afghanistan, or did he lose them after the destruction of Mother Base? If you notice in this Ground Zero scene inside the hospital, which takes place shortly after the destruction of Mother Base, notice that Kaz's arms and legs are not shown, maybe trying to hide the fact that he had already lost his limbs. Food for thought.
We pull in money, recruits, just to combat Cypher. Rubbing our noses in bloody battlefield dirt. All for revenge.
As Snake helps him walk, Kaz begins to fill Snake in on his motivations, talking about seeking revenge against Cypher, aka the Patriots, the powerful organization with unlimited resources, led by Major Zero alongside its other 4 members, Paramedic, Eva, Ocelot, and Sigint, aka Donald Anderson. Big Boss used to be a member back in 1970, only to leave 2 years later due to differences in ideals between him and Zero, and due to the Les Enfants Terribles project, which was carried out without Big Boss's consent. Since then, Big Boss and Zero have been at odds. This organization, the Patriots, and its leader Zero are likely the ones responsible for the destruction of Mother Base, along with Big Boss's 9-year coma. During those years, as Kaz implies in his monologue, he likely tried to fight back against Cypher and avenge his fallen comrades, but his attempt failed, leading to his kidnapping and loss of limbs. And as a side note, Kaz seems to have a different voice actor. His voice is a little deeper than I remember, but it may be just me. Before Kaz can say more, the trailer cuts to another scene showing the torture of a young lady codenamed Quiet, who we see later on in the trailer. The reason for her torture is unknown, as is much about her character, to be honest. We'll talk more about her later. Now, the man leading the torture is someone most of us are familiar with, Revolver Ocelot, who not only is an expert in the field of torture, but also takes great pleasure in it. It is also interesting to note that the torture device, the electric rods, seem to be identical to the ones used by Dr. Strangelove to torture Big Boss during Peace Walker. I don't think that's just a coincidence either. This entire torture session is actually being sanctioned by Big Boss, and I'll get to the proof in just a minute. In the meantime, let's move on and put a pin on this. We are shown yet another controversial theme through this scene with child soldiers in Africa. While this is a theme that's always been part of the Metal Gear saga, with many protagonists and antagonists having suffered the fate of living their childhoods as soldiers, we never truly get to see the brutality behind these circumstances. That'll clearly change in this game. Now, as for where specifically in Africa this is, if I had to guess, I would say the country of South Africa, which is where Outer Heaven is eventually founded by Big Boss, leading into the events of Metal Gear 1 for the NES. The dark themes continue with another grueling torture scene. The setting is Camp Omega from Ground Zero, so it is early 1975 in this scene. As for who the victim is, that's something that's impossible to tell in the current situation. The perpetrators are very likely soldiers from XOF, or XOF, commanded by the antagonist codenamed Skullface, and during this entire ordeal, we get to hear Kaz's monologue, which truly brings to life the subtitle of the game, the Phantom Pain, which not only revolves around feeling pain from missing limbs, but also around feeling pain from missing comrades. It's both a literal and a symbolic subtitle, and the very thing that drives the motive of revenge. The next scene also takes place during Ground Zeroes, and we get to witness what is one of the most gruesome scenes in recent memory. I mean, this just left me absolutely speechless. Worst of all, it's happening to a young girl, fully conscious. Yes, folks, contrary to first impressions, this child is a girl, not a boy. Just look at her physique, clearly a girl. Some people are assuming that she could be Paz Ortega, aka Oceania, the Cypher agent who, after the events of Peace Walker, was actually captured, imprisoned, and tortured in Camp Omega, but she doesn't have Paz's cold blue eyes, so I doubt it's her. From inside her body, Big Boss, with the help of Chico and one more soldier, pulls out what seems to be a bomb. This is likely Skullface's doing, since this girl is wearing Camp Omegas' prisoner attire. Most notable about the package is the peace sign, which could be Skullface sending Snake some kind of a message. Perhaps Skullface is somehow related to the events of Peace Walker. We'll have to wait and see. For the last torture segment, the victim is Hughie Emmerich, discernible by the bipedal machine that supports him. Once again, it is Ocelot who is leading the interrogation, wielding what he considers to be the greatest handgun ever made, the Colt single-action army, and once again the reasons for the torture are unknown. And even more confusing is that the man pulling the strings of these torture sessions is none other than Kaz Miller, Big Boss's second-in-command. Now, a lot of people have been saying this is obviously Campbell, but first, look at his shades, and second, look at his right arm. It's missing. He probably has a prosthetic leg for walking, and the logo for Snake's new private army, Diamond Dogs, on his hat seals the deal. This is without a doubt Kaz Miller after the formation of Diamond Dogs. This means that Big Boss is personally sanctioning these torture sessions, including quiets. But why are they torturing Hughie, a comrade? Then again, Big Boss's righteous side is slipping little by little alongside Kaz's, with thirst for revenge turning into a demon. Alright folks, the dark, cringe-inducing portions are over. The following segment moves us into the middle of Afghanistan, not too long after Snake's 9-year slumber, in which we can see Snake and Ocelot out on a little horseback stroll.
It's not just them. The whole world wants you dead.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that by them he means Cypher or the Patriots. The question then becomes, why does Cypher and the world want Snake dead? My guess is that it has to do with Snake's attempt to build his own private army with the MSF, which was slowly becoming more and more formidable. Both Zero and World Powers likely see Big Boss as a threat, because as long as he's alive, private armies will keep rising from the ashes. Also, as a side note, Ocelot seems to have a new voice actor, one that doesn't sound as old as Patrick Zimmerman or as young as Joshua Keaton. Just right smack in the middle. I think it sounds pretty good.
You'll have to join up with Miller. Build that private army of yours one more time.
Now, unlike Cypher and the world, Ocelot seems to have a different opinion, suggesting that Snake joins up with Miller and actually rebuilds a private army. Unfortunately, Kaz Miller has been taken hostage in Afghanistan, so it is up to Snake to rescue him. Expect this mission to be one of the first, if not the first mission for Snake to undertake after he wakes up from his coma and escapes the hospital with the help of Ocelot. Now, interesting to note, in this shot is Snake's attire. He's wearing goggles and a mask to fend off the sandstorm, and he's even rocking a ponytail. These may just be temporary, but I've got to wonder if players will be able to customize Snake, and if so, to what degree? Kojima keeps emphasizing that this Metal Gear is an open world game, so what better way to enhance this open world experience than with some customization options? Also note his camo suit. Will Snake be able to change to a new camo mid-game like in Snake Eater? And what about that prosthetic arm of his? Will it come with certain tools to aid Snake in his missions? If this is Galvez's prosthetic arm, then we know it comes with a lighter and a little torch, but it's gotta have some extra neat little kinks hidden underneath. Who knows? We'll see.
First, we need to save Miller. He's in Afghanistan.
If we look closely here, we can see Snake wielding a military knife on his back, so expect knife-based CQC to make a return.
You're a legend in the eyes of those who live on the battlefield. That's why you have to handle this mission yourself. That's how Kaz would want it. Afghanistan is a big place.
Here we get a clear view of the debris embedded into Snake's skull, which he somehow got during his 9 years of coma. I don't know how the debris plays a role in the story, but it is definitely symbolism pertaining to another one of the big themes of the game, which is Big Boss turning into a villain, or, as Big Boss puts it, into a demon.
I expect you'll become quite familiar with those binoculars as you plan your next move.
Binoculars, unlike in past games, will likely prove to be invaluable in Metal Gear Solid 5. After all, the game is open world and the mission sandboxes are vast in scale, as we will see in a minute. I am pretty sure that Ocelot is not only talking to Snake, but also giving a heads up to the players.
How and where you make it, well, that's up to you.
Once again, Ocelot indirectly talking to players, this time saying, "It is an open world game, so do whatever the hell you want."
Now go! And let the legend come back to life.
And so we finally dive into the open world desert of Afghanistan, and damn, those are some beautiful landscapes. The open world won't just be barren either. Players will come across various landmarks and encounter humans and other living things. The landscape continues to impress, both in its scale and its beauty, and real-time weather only does the game more favors. We've already seen rain during the Ground Zeroes trailer, rain that may not be there during your gameplay session. Also exciting is the ability to use various modes of transportation. Snake has always been on foot most of the time during gameplay in past Metal Gear Solid games, but we'll finally get to move around in everything from cars and trucks to horses and actually fully control them. And there's that binocular Ocelot put so much emphasis on, and it certainly looks like something I'll be using often, especially during mission insertion. In past games, the mission structure was already laid out, but in this game, players get to do everything from entering the mission zone, choosing their paths and methods, and extraction. Here, for example, the player uses the enemy's truck to his advantage. Something else that I'm really excited about is the real-time day and night cycle. Players can even choose the day and time in which they wish to tackle their missions, and depending on the time of the day, the AI will act differently. Security will tighten or loosen, and of course, depending on the time, it'll be easier or harder to hide from enemies depending on how much sunlight or shadow is present. Now, based on this footage, I've got to wonder, does the game allow players to fast forward time like in the Elder Scrolls? Is there some kind of a wait or rest button or mechanic that allows players to skip to a certain time of the day? Perhaps that's what we're seeing here. I think this is a loading animation during which we see Snake smoking a cigar until time fast forwards to a designated time, but I may be wrong. Now, in this particular segment, the player smartly chooses to tackle the mission at night to use the shadows to his advantage, as you'll see in a moment. Snake has never looked better in action. Apart from his new moves, the most notable change from past games is the fluidity of Snake's movement. Not only have animations been vastly improved, but there is no longer that clunky feeling of having to wait for an animation to finish in order to start the next one. Everything just flows. Snake no longer stops to crouch or stops to get up. He does everything in motion, which is fantastic. Holy shit, Snake. Did you just jump? Like a human? Without doing a barrel roll? So yeah, once again, look at how smooth Snake's movements are, doing everything in motion without clunkily stopping. Absolutely sublime. CQC also makes a return, and it looks like the old dog has learned some new tricks. Weapons are no longer limited to little boxes floating in the air. Weapons can now be physically grabbed within the game world instantly. In fact, I haven't seen a single floating cylinder of ration. When Kojima said darker and more realistic with this game, he was not joking. I've got to wonder if those floating objects are going to make a return. After a long journey, Snake finally reaches Kaz, who has obviously seen better days.
Kaz, it's me. I'm here to get you out.
And there is Kiefer Sutherland's voice, which if you ask me, sounds like a blend between David Hayter and Richard Doyle. Thus far, I've been liking Kiefer's performance with Snake.
Snake.
Welcome back, Kaz Miller, a visionary robbed of his future. And I've already discussed about his urge for revenge, the phantom pain he feels, not only from his missing limbs, but also from his missing comrades, so this subtitle ties in pretty well with all that.
What took you so long?
And there's the introduction to one of the various tortured characters, Quiet, a sniper deprived of her words. All we know for sure is that she's proficient with a sniper rifle, which has led many to assume that perhaps she's a younger Sniper Wolf, but that's simply not possible since Sniper Wolf was born in 1980, meaning she'd be 4 years old during the events of the Phantom Pain. Quiet is likely just a new character altogether, perhaps sharing some kind of relationship with The End or Sniper Wolf. Not only does the name Quiet suggest that this character is a formidable silent killer with a sniper rifle, but also that she may be physically mute, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if she turns out to be one of the bosses, especially considering her supernatural powers. I'm not exactly sure what the mascara does, but it likely has to do with enhancing her vision. Next up is Eli, a youth who curses his fate. Notice how young both Quiet and Eli are, once again driving the theme of child soldiers. Now, like many people, my first impressions of Eli is that he could possibly be a young Liquid Snake. He looks like he could be 12 years old, which is how old both Solid and Liquid would be during the time. Everything from his attitude, his hair, his green eyes, to the fact that he is a child soldier, all scream Liquid. But honestly, there's just no way to confirm or deny. On the one hand, there is no information on Liquid's life when he was 12 years old, but on the other hand, it's always been known that he was raised in the UK, so what the hell would Liquid be doing in Afghanistan at the age of 12? We'll have to wait and see. Our next character is Skullface, a ghost without a past. He is the leader of the Zoff unit, and honestly looks like an extremely dangerous and sadistic bastard. And just the way he moves right here just shows he's the kind of guy who likes spectacles. He could end up being the Joker of Metal Gear Solid. I believe he's the one responsible for planting that bomb inside the little girl, and overall he just seems to play a huge role in the Ground Zeroes portion of the game. Perhaps he will be one of the first boss battles players will encounter. Up next is Hughie Emmerich, a technocrat who stands his ground, and one of Ocelot's torture victims. Ever since he helped build a weapon of mass destruction in Peace Walker, Hughie has strived to help the world with his intellect. It's also good to see that he found a way to walk, even if it is using machines. We are also finally introduced to Ocelot, a rival living a lie. The man has a complicated relationship with Big Boss. He's a rival and an admirer, all at the same time. What interests me most, however, is the living a lie portion. Which life is the lie? The one with Cypher or the one with Big Boss? It is important to keep in mind that while Ocelot is with Cypher, he doesn't quite necessarily agree with all of Zero's policies. Another new character is this mysterious man known as the Code Talker, a wise man denied his homeland. I would like to say he's some character we've already seen before, but I can honestly think of no one. I think he's a completely new character, but if you have any other ideas, be sure to let our NASIAN know in the comments below. Now here is where it starts getting weird. First up, we have 4 individuals hidden in the sand, making their way over like they have been cast a role for The Walking Dead. We're gonna get a close-up of them in just a few seconds, so let's just put a pin on it. Next is footage of who to me is quite clearly a young Psycho Mantis. For one reason or another, he doesn't get a name, so expect Kojima to keep this mysterious character under wraps for quite a while. Those who don't exist. In other words, the dead, or those who are assumed dead. Many fans have noted this creature's resemblance to Volgan, and I have to agree. The quote also brings me back to the 4 monsters, who also seem to be part of the group of those who don't exist. Could these 4 monsters be related to the 4 members of the Cobra unit that Big Boss personally killed during Snake Eater? The Sorrow had already been dead, and the boss is someone who doesn't have some kind of vengeful spirit against Snake or anything. But the other 4? I think they might. I may just be drawing at straws here, they may just be new super soldiers altogether, but they may as well be based on the Cobra unit. It is also interesting to note that the monsters have numbers on their heads. These guys may also just be a breed of super soldiers from Cypher. We will have to wait and see. Here is further reference to the child soldiers theme. I feel like I'm watching Metal Gear Rwanda, a lot of crazy stuff. Then we get right back to gameplay with Snake on the rescue. This portion of the game also seems to show off a smarter enemy AI. Here, for example, we see the enemy using a flare to alert all the guards. Players can choose a variety of ways to make their escape, and enemies will actually make pursuit. I really hope this isn't a scripted event. I hope there's the possibility to escape without being detected. And there's that extraction which players can call in at their will to transport them back to base. We've already seen this mechanic when Ground Zeroes footage was shown, and expect this helicopter to be your way around the many open world locations found throughout the game. The trailer then skips back to Ground Zeroes with a rather unusual scene. Many people are assuming that Snake is choking Chico, but I think he's applying pressure for an injury or something along those lines. Big Boss is there to rescue the kid, not kill him. Plus, we've already seen the two together in the gruesome scene with a little girl, and Chico was just fine, although maybe a little traumatized. The following shot puts the nail in the coffin that Big Boss is indeed behind the torture of Quiet and Hughie. I am seriously dying to know why Hughie is being tortured. And here's a little flashback to Ground Zeroes, showing how Cypher stripped Kaz and Big Boss of their future. We are then shown the name of the song, Sins of a Father, which is actually an original song. If we are to assume that the father is Big Boss, then the sons would be Solid, Liquid, and Solidus, perhaps a little nod at the possibility of the sons making an appearance. Now here's a reference to blood diamonds, something that has been well known and documented in South Africa, where Outer Heaven is eventually founded. I'm not exactly sure what is going on here, but inside the cage are not only children but also adults. And finally, we are introduced to the final character, our protagonist, Punished Snake, a fallen legend. The subtitle not only talks about his reputation as a soldier, but also foreshadows his fall as an individual. It's pretty much a given that Snake will fall low to achieve his revenge, and that he will live long enough to become the villain. And all those little messages we've seen throughout the trailer, they are all trying to say this is pure revenge, that their actions from here on out will have no righteous cause. It's not about love, peace, honor, justice, ideologies, power, the future, nations, none of that stuff that once used to be the driving force of Big Boss's actions and efforts. Righteous ideologies have been cast aside to satisfy their hate, anger, pain, and to fulfill absolute vengeance. A fallen legend indeed. Last but not least, we have a devastating scene fully showing Kaz missing his right arm and half of his left leg. And again, I've gotta wonder, did this happen after the destruction of Mother Base during Ground Zeroes, or while he was captured in Afghanistan, or perhaps sometime in between? Wouldn't he have bled to death if his arm and leg was cut off in such conditions in Afghanistan? At the same time, there's definitely some bloodstains on his shirt, but not nearly enough for a limb that's been cut. Let us know your opinions in the comments below.
Cypher sent us to hell, but we're going even deeper. Take back everything that we've lost.
Kaz, I'm already a demon.
Again, another conversation referencing to turning into demons or villains, going deeper into hell for the sake of revenge. Now here is one final scene for you guys showing off one of Big Boss's new toys. It's like a Rex Mini of sorts, seems pretty deadly, and a bit advanced for the era, but oh well, the magic of fiction. But more interesting is what Ocelot says.
He mentioned something interesting. Cypher is pursuing new research. He claims that what they're doing in Africa is the missing piece. A weapon to surpass Metal Gear.
By he, I'm assuming he's talking about the tortured Hughie, who seems to have talked, and who seems to have knowledge of what's going on with Cypher. Could it be that Hughie somehow defected to Cypher after the fall of MSF and Ground Zeroes? That is certainly a possibility. A lot can happen in 9 years, and it seems Hughie has knowledge of a weapon that surpasses Metal Gear being researched by Cypher. Cypher, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is without a doubt the longest trailer analysis I've ever done. I mean, I spent hours just writing this 6-page long script with over 3,800 words. I am so glad to finally be releasing this video for you guys. Now, with so much footage to analyze, I'm bound to make a mistake or miss something, so if I did, be sure to let our NASIAN know in the comments below. Also, be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed my analysis. And to be further updated on Metal Gear Solid 5, be sure to join the NASIAN and subscribe to Young Ye. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, and Young out.